Hey guys, I'm posting this here as a warning to all of the other people who work in fast food. Never let a health inspector in after 7 p.m. You see, I used to manage an Arby's in rural Minnesota, and it was a franchise. The owners paid me well, to be their 5-day-a-week closing manager, and I had a guy who helped me close up every night, a wiry kid with thick black glasses, and a bigger attitude named Devin. Devin was a good kid, a few years younger than me, and the life of the party, even when the party was a desolate fast food restaurant in the middle of nowhere. Devin would make the food and clean up, making my life so much easier on those long nights, and after every task he'd find me wherever I was, and hurl an unfunny dad joke at me. Despite their lack of relevance, his jokes always made me chuckle, and boosted my mood. The last night we worked together was a slow Sunday night, much like any other. Barely anyone came after 9 p.m. despite us being open until midnight. I got some extra cleaning done, and shot the shit with Devin every so often. I remember Devin telling me about some new update to the game he played every night when we went our separate ways. He was excited because they added the floss to the emotes. As I rolled my eyes and gave my signature chuckle, I heard a knock come from the drive-through window. Both of us froze in place, frightened by this sudden distraction. People didn't usually just walk up to our drive-through. There wasn't much near us, nowhere to really be walking from, if you had any sense. "You gonna get that, boss lady?" Devin said in his joking tone. Words failed me as I was overtaken by paranoia. Who would be knocking on our window this late? My eyes flicked to the clock, 11:30. We were still open for 30 minutes. "No worries, I'll see what they want," Devin said nonchalantly as he breezed to the window. He cracked open the window and leaned down to talk to the guy. From a distance, I could tell by his silhouette that he was a small pudgy man with a bald head. "What's poppin'?" Devin said with a smile, greeting the customer in his signature way. I could see the toad of a man crane his neck to look up at Devin, which was weird, because Devin wasn't abnormally tall or anything. "Yes sir, I'm here with the Becker County Health Department, here to do an inspection." The man spoke in a soft and nasally tone. I then strided over quickly, knowing I was in deep crap, if this was really the health department. All of the cleaning supplies were out, I hadn't discarded any of our expired product yet, and I was about to be caught with my pants down. Reaching the window I spoke. "Oh wow. I've never seen you guys come so late," I said nervously. "Yes ma'am, new protocol. So we can make sure the health code is always being obeyed," he said in a snide tone. "Want me to let him in, boss?" Devin said quietly. Yeah. I'll grab the COVID-19 questionnaire," I said quietly. Never had I been so happy to be in a pandemic. Using this questionnaire I would have to see his identification and I could shoo him away if his temperature was too high. I rushed to grab my thermometer and question guide, and glanced into the parking lot as I walked. There were no cars in the parking lot. As I said, there was really nowhere to walk from. We were on a desolate road off of the highway, with only a gas station on the other side of the road. I glanced at the gas station, and it appeared to be closed early, although the owner's car was still sitting in its parking spot outside. Fear kicked it up a notch in my stomach, and I gulped as I headed to the back, to meet the strange man and Devin. "Okay, let's get that temp," I said cheerfully, attempting to mask my fear. I took in the man's appearance as I raised the thermometer to his sweaty forehead. He must have been 4'10" or so. He looked like he weighed 300 pounds easily. He was sweating profusely, and the sweat poured down his face like tributaries to a river, pulling at his Coke bottle glasses. He was wearing a polo shirt that was much too small, and khakis that were ripping at the seams. A lanyard hung loosely around his neck. I knew the thermometer worked. I had used it on Devin earlier that day. I think I need to try again," I said in almost a whisper. "No, the points are lost. Proceed with the questions." Devin scoffed at the man's rude response, and walked away to finish cleaning his station. I followed my symptom checklist and Ronald, shockingly, displayed no symptoms of COVID-19. God, I wish he had, although, who's to say things would have been any different. After he was finished with the checklist, he pulled a phone out of the stretched pocket of his khakis. I could see in the reflection of his glasses that he was indeed filling out some kind of form. The inspector made his way around the store, looking above, under, and around things. As he, well, inspected, I cleaned up the chemicals I had left out haphazardly, and tidied up as fastidiously as possible. Devon came up behind me, and gripped my shoulder. Something is off about this guy, boss. Don't be alone with him. I got a bad feeling. Devon was out of character with his serious tone. I won't, don't worry, I said in a hushed whisper, nodding in agreement as I continued finishing up the cleaning. The inspector walked around in a stunted shuffle, moving quickly one moment, then sluggish the next. It was as if he was trying to decide what was more natural. I glanced at the clock. 12:05, we were closed. I pulled the cash drawer out, and emptied the contents into our time-locked safe, and completed my banking for the evening. All that was left was the general tidying up and stocking, and as I went about my business I eyed the strange inspector suspiciously. I thought of the gas station again. It never closed before midnight, so I glanced to see if the owner, Reggie, was walking out like he normally would around this time. Nothing. His car was parked outside, but there didn't appear to be any signs of anybody still inside the building. I sighed and carried on with my duties. Time flowed forward in a march of inevitability. I was bound to finish my work before this inspection was done, and so it was. The clock read 12:53. Devon and I were completely finished, and I went to find the inspector, dead set on finding out what exactly was going on. He was in our dining room, under a table, picking discarded chewing gum off of the tables and eating it. I could hear pig-like grunts as he greedily consumed the ancient gum from the underside of the abandoned tables. I pretended not to see him as I spoke. We're done, sir. We can't leave until you're finished. Any idea how much longer it's gonna be? The bulbous man skittered out from under the table. Yes, I'm about finished. One more place I need to check. I need you to show me the walk-in cooler. Will you take me, young lady? He said in his nasally voice. Nah, I've got it. Come with me. Devon said from way in the back, intent on not leaving me alone with the strange man. Great, the inspector said as he followed Devon to the cooler. When I was done, I glanced at the clock. 1:20 a.m. Why hadn't they come out yet? What was so interesting about the cooler? That's when realization crashed over me like a car going 70 miles per hour right into a brick wall. Devon had been so concerned about not leaving me alone with the inspector, but I had turned around and done just that to him. I took on a brisk stride to the walk-in cooler, desperate to see what was really going on in there. My hands gripped the cold metal handle of the cooler, and as I pulled it toward me, I was overwhelmed with a rotten stench. My eyes immediately fell to Devon. He was crumpled to the bare metal floor, and at first I thought he was wearing a red cape, until I realized it was a puddle of blood. The health inspector was leaned over him, making the same pig-like grunts he had with the gum. Devon's face was frozen in a mask of silent, still suffering as the obese health inspector gorged on the soft flesh of Devon's neck. The inspector looked to me, eyes flowing with some kind of yellow goop, blood running down his chin, and as he spoke, the sinew of Devon's neck spit from his teeth. Congratulations, you passed your health inspection. To my horror, Devon made a noise, as if he wasn't quite dead yet. I thought that I could save him. I looked to my right and saw a massive rcrd produce, and knew what I had to do. I launched forward, and tackled the health inspector, and I screamed as he sunk his surprisingly sharp teeth into my shoulder. I brought my fists down on his eye sockets, and he gave a deep growl as he let his teeth loose from my shoulder. I immediately got off of the inspector, and grabbed the wet fabric of Devon's shirt, and dragged him as I backed out of the cooler. The inspector started getting to his feet, but as he did, I grabbed the massive rack, and pulled it down onto him. I heard a crash as I absconded from the confounds of the cramped cooler, Devon in tow. Looking down at him, I realized he was stirring, he was still breathing. I knew he didn't have much time before he succumbed to his injuries, so I made haste in dragging him outside. I heard guttural screaming come from inside the building as I dragged Devon to the small shed behind our store, to which only I had the key. I dropped Devon for a moment as my blood-soaked hands fumbled for the key, and I heard him wheeze as he hit the pavement. It's going to be okay, I'm going to get you out of here, Devon. The guttural scream came again, and as I raised my gaze I saw the thing that had come into my restaurant running at me on all fours. The door gave in at that moment and I hastily dragged Devon inside. Quickly, I locked the door, and began searching for my phone. I dialed 911 and told them where I was and that we had been attacked. As I spoke with the operator, I heard the creature slamming itself on the door. It was grunting and gurgling. They informed me to keep my hands pressing down on Devon's gaping neckwound to prevent the flow of blood. I heard sirens in the distance, and then I heard one final thing from the creature. Make sure you clean the cooler better next time, for the inspection. Goodbye, stay healthy. Stay safe. With that, he left and I heard the thuds of an obese man running on all fours into the distance. I looked down to Devon, pale and still. It was at that moment I knew he was gone. Blood no longer flowed from his neck wounds, and no soft breaths escaped his slightly parted lips. The police questioned me until the sun rose. My boss pulled up to open the store only to find me, covered in a fire blanket, with a vacant 1,000-yard stare. The police told me they found Reggie across the street at the gas station. He was half-eaten in the beer cave in the back. They also found the real Ronald Cox in his car, crashed alongside the highway, half-eaten, on his way to give a health inspection. The thing must have made a fake ID, killed Ronald, then walked until he got to the first exit, which was my exit. Then he killed and ate Reggie, then he found us. If you go to look up this incident, nothing appears, as the company I work for paid a hefty sum to make sure this never came out. After all of this, they paid me a year of bereavement pay, and offered to let me come back to any location at any time. Devon was laid to rest with a small funeral, and his family received quite a lot of hush money. They told everyone Devon passed in a car accident. I think they'd like to pretend it was true. As for me, I ditched Minnesota. I'm sick of the woods, and being in the middle of nowhere. I could never work in food again. The thought of seeing a health inspector makes me sick. I'm now legal aid, and things are going great. I live in warm Arizona, with no trees anywhere near me. You can see exactly what's coming for you. Today, I got off of work pretty late, and I went through a drive-thru. When they were handing me my food, I glanced to the clock, and my stomach churned. It was 12:34 a.m., and there was a short fat man with lanyard that said, Dewey Pinkerton Greenlee County Health Inspector. I left as quickly as possible, and called the police, lying and saying I had seen someone robbing the restaurant. As soon as I got home, I decided it was time to share my story. I don't know what that thing is, or how it got to Arizona, but I knew I had to warn people. There is a creature that impersonates health inspectors, and I suspect maybe more public entities, and it will come to you late at night to feast upon you. So please, if you work in fast food, and a health inspector comes after 7 p.m., do not let it in.